My daughter's graduation cap had barely stopped wobbling on her head when my ex-husband decided to humiliate me in front of everyone we knew. The auditorium was still buzzing with applause, cameras still flashing, families still hugging, and he leaned across 3 folding chairs, close enough that I could smell his cologne mixed with the sharp tang of champagne he'd been sipping in the parking lot. And he said it loud enough for at least 3 rows of parents and grandparents to hear. A $200 savings bond? That's all you could manage after 18 years of being her mother. A few people laughed. Not big laughs. The kind of laughs people let out when they're uncomfortable but too polite to tell someone to shut up. My mother pressed her lips together so hard they turned white. My sister grabbed my wrist under her program. And my daughter, my beautiful Ava, standing there in her blue cap and gown with her diploma still warm in her hands, watched her smile just dissolve. Like someone had reached over and wiped it right off her face. I didn't say a word. I reached into my purse, pulled out a plain white envelope, and handed it to her. He kept laughing. He nudged his new wife. He made another joke about salon tips and loose change. Ava opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a letter, a set of official documents, and a single business card. She read the card first. Her eyes went wide. She looked at me, then back at the card, then back at me again. He must have noticed, because he stopped laughing and grabbed the card out of her hand. I watched his face change. I watched every drop of color drain from his cheeks as he read the name of the trust fund manager printed in embossed gold lettering, and the number beneath it, and the account summary stapled to the back of the letter. He didn't say another word. Not one. And for the first time in 12 years, the silence coming from that man was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. Hi, I'm Tessa, and I'm 38 years old. I know that's young to have an 18-year-old, but life doesn't wait for perfect timing, and mine certainly didn't. I got pregnant at 19, married at 20, divorced at 26, and spent every single day since then raising my daughter alone in a town where everybody knows your business and most of them have opinions about it. I'm a hairstylist. That's what I do. I work in a small salon on Birch Street called Goldie's, named after the woman who hired me when I was 22 and didn't even have a full cosmetology license yet. I've been doing hair for 16 years now. Cuts, colors, perms, blowouts, updos for proms and weddings. My hands smell like developer and coconut oil more often than not, and my back aches most nights from standing on my feet for 9 hours straight. When my ex-husband, Craig, left me for a woman he met at a corporate retreat, he didn't just leave the marriage. He left me with a 2-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner, a 6-year-old daughter, $400 in our joint checking account, and a reputation in town as the woman who couldn't keep her man. Craig remarried fast. His new wife, Danielle, came from money. Old money, the kind that smells like leather car seats and private school brochures. Within 2 years of our divorce, Craig was living in a 4-bedroom house with a pool, driving a BMW, and posting family photos online with Danielle and her 2 kids like Ava was just some weekend accessory he picked up on Fridays when it was convenient. Everyone assumed I was barely surviving. And honestly, for the first few years, they weren't entirely wrong. I clipped coupons. I bought Ava's school clothes at thrift stores and told her vintage was cool. I packed her lunch every single day because I couldn't afford the cafeteria plan. I drove a car with 200,000 miles on it and a passenger door that only opened from the outside. But here's the thing people didn't see. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't college educated. I didn't have a trust fund or a rich new spouse or a fancy job title. But I had something my ex-husband never once believed I possessed. Discipline, patience, and a 10-year quiet plan that I never told a single soul about until the day it mattered most. If you've ever been judged for how little people think you have while you were secretly building something huge, hit that subscribe button right now. Tell me in the comments what they laughed at that actually paid off. Let's keep going. The trouble really started at Ava's graduation party. Not the ceremony itself, but the party afterward, which Craig insisted on hosting at his big house because, and I'm quoting him here, Ava deserves a real celebration, not a potluck in a parking lot. He said that to me over the phone 2 weeks before graduation. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. The party was exactly what you'd expect from Craig. 60 guests, catered food, a DJ in the backyard, string lights draped over the pool like something out of a magazine. Danielle had coordinated everything in shades of white and gold. There were monogrammed napkins. Monogrammed napkins. For a high school graduation party. And right there in the driveway, parked at an angle so everyone walking up could see it, was a brand new cherry red sedan with a massive white bow on top. Ava's gift from Craig and Danielle. I stood on the lawn and watched 60 people pull out their phones to film my daughter squealing and jumping up and down next to that car. Craig stood behind her with his arms crossed and this grin on his face, the kind of grin that says, "Top that." And then he did what Craig always does. He made it about me. He walked over to the gift table where my little wrapped savings bond was sitting next to a pile of cards and a few bigger boxes, and he picked it up and held it in the air like it was evidence in a trial. "Everybody, check it out," he said, loud enough for the whole backyard to hear. Tessa got Ava a $200 savings bond. $200. That's like what, a week of salon tips. People laughed. Some of them looked away. A few looked at me with pity, which was worse than the laughing. "Come on, Tess," he said, shaking his head with this fake, sympathetic look. "I know living in a shoebox apartment doesn't leave much room for generosity, but you could have at least matched what Grandma sent." More laughter. Ava's face was doing that thing it does when she's embarrassed for me but doesn't want to make a scene. That halfway look between loyalty and shame that no child should ever have to wear. I walked over to Ava. I didn't look at Craig. I didn't look at Danielle. I didn't look at any of the 60 people holding their phones and their champagne glasses and their judgments. I reached into my bag and pulled out the real gift. The plain white envelope. "This is for you," I said softly. "Open it when you're ready." She opened it right there. I think she wanted to prove to everyone that whatever was inside, she'd be grateful. She pulled out the letter first. "Read it." Her lips moved a little as her eyes scanned the page. Then she pulled out the official documents, the ones with the letterhead from the financial management firm and the account summary printed on heavy cream-colored paper. Then she saw the number. $1.2 million. In a college trust fund. In her name only. Her hands started shaking. She looked up at me and her eyes were already filling with tears. "Mom," she whispered. "Is this real?" "Every penny," I said. The backyard went quiet. Not the comfortable kind of quiet. The kind where 60 people all realize at the same time that they've been laughing at the wrong person. Craig snatched the paperwork out of Ava's hands. He read it. He flipped to the second page. He read that too. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Then Danielle walked over and read it over his shoulder, and I watched her face go through about 6 different emotions in 4 seconds. That was the moment everything changed. But Craig being Craig, he didn't just accept it. He couldn't. Within 24 hours of that party, he was on a mission to destroy what I'd built. The first thing he did was pull Ava aside, just the two of them in his kitchen the next morning, and try to convince her that the trust fund was fake. I know this because Ava called me crying afterward. "Dad says there's no way you have that kind of money," she told me. "He says you probably forged the documents or someone is scamming you. He says I shouldn't tell anyone about it because it could be stolen money and I could get in trouble." I sat on my couch, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the water stain on my ceiling that I'd been meaning to fix for 3 years, and I felt something cold settle into my chest. Not surprise. I wasn't surprised. But hearing your daughter repeat her father's words designed to make your child doubt you, that cuts in a way that doesn't heal clean. "Ava," I said calmly, "the money is real. It's legal. And it's yours. I promise you." She believed me. But the damage was already spreading. Because the next thing Craig did was take it public. He posted on social media. A long, rambling post that got shared over 200 times in our town. The gist of it was this. He had spent 18 years being a devoted father, providing Ava with a stable home, a car, vacations, a college fund of his own, and now her mother was trying to buy her love at the last minute with some mysterious money that nobody could verify. He used phrases like financial manipulation and emotional bribery. He tagged family members. He tagged mutual friends. He even tagged my salon's business page, which meant my clients saw it too. I sat in my chair at Goldie's the next morning, and Mrs. Patterson, who's been coming to me for highlights every 6 weeks for 9 years, looked at me in the mirror and said, "Tessa, honey, is everything okay?" I saw Craig's post. I smiled at her and kept blending her color. "Everything's fine, Mrs. Patterson. Same formula as last time." I didn't explain. I didn't defend. I kept cutting hair. But Craig wasn't done. The third betrayal, and this was the one that actually scared me, was legal. He filed an emergency court motion to freeze Ava's trust fund. His argument was that I, a hairstylist earning a modest income, could not possibly have accumulated $1.2 million through legal means. He was alleging fraud. He was alleging theft. He was essentially telling a judge that I was a criminal. The court date was set for 2 weeks after graduation. I got the notice on a Tuesday afternoon, right between a Brazilian blowout and a root touch-up. I read it standing in the back room of the salon, surrounded by the smell of peroxide and lavender shampoo and the hum of the washing machine running a load of towels. I folded the paper, put it in my apron pocket, and went back to my client. I stayed quiet. I kept cutting hair. And I let him dig. Here's what Craig didn't know. What nobody knew, actually, except for one person. For the past 10 years, while Craig was buying boats and throwing pool parties and posting pictures of his perfect blended family, I had been living a completely different life than the one everyone assumed. It started small. Really small. When I was 24, fresh out of beauty school and barely keeping the lights on, I took an advanced business seminar that was offered as an elective in my program. Most of the other students skipped it. I didn't. The instructor was a woman named Dr. Elena Park. She was Korean American, sharp as a razor, and had this way of explaining money that made it feel less like a mystery and more like a language I just hadn't learned yet. She'd started as a cosmetologist herself, believe it or not. Worked her way through college doing hair on the side, then got an MBA, then a PhD in finance, then became one of the most respected venture capitalists in the beauty industry. She saw something in me. I still don't fully understand what, because at the time I was a broke single mom who cried in the salon bathroom at least once a week. But she pulled me aside after class one day and said, "Tessa, you're smart. You listen. Most people in this industry spend everything they earn on products and rent. I want to teach you how to make your money work harder than your hands do." I didn't know what angel investing was. I barely knew what a stock was. But I trusted her and I started learning. She taught me how to read market trends in the beauty industry. She showed me how to spot small startups with big potential, companies creating new hair care formulas, scalp technology, salon booking software, sustainable packaging for beauty products. These were businesses that big investors overlooked because they seemed too small, too niche, too girly. But Elena knew the beauty industry was worth hundreds of billions of dollars globally, and she knew that the right small investment at the right time could multiply in ways that would make Wall Street jealous. So I started investing. Not a lot. Not at first. I took my tips, the ones Craig loved to joke about, and instead of spending them, I saved them. Every week, I put aside whatever I could. Sometimes it was $50. Sometimes it was $20. Some weeks it was nothing because Ava needed new shoes, or the car needed a repair, or the electricity bill was higher than expected. But over time, it added up. By the time Ava was 10, I had saved just over $40,000. And with Elena's guidance, I started putting that money into carefully chosen startups. The first one was a company that made organic hair masks using ingredients sourced from women-owned farms in Central America. I invested $3,000. 2 years later, the company was acquired by a major beauty conglomerate. My $3,000 turned into $22,000. The second investment was a salon management app that let stylists track inventory, schedule appointments, and process payments from their phones. I invested $5,000. That company went through 3 rounds of funding, and my stake grew to over $60,000. The third was a biotech startup developing a non-toxic hair straightening treatment. I invested $8,000. That one took longer to pay off, nearly 4 years, but when it did, my return was just over $150,000. And there were others. Some failed. I lost money on a few. But Elena had taught me to diversify, to be patient, to think in decades instead of weeks. By the time Ava turned 16, my portfolio was worth just over $900,000. By her 18th birthday, with 2 more successful exits and compound interest working in my favor, the total had crossed $1.2 million. I set up the trust fund 6 months before graduation. I met with a financial manager whose name Craig had never heard because Craig didn't pay attention to people who operated quietly. I signed the papers in a conference room that smelled like fresh coffee and leather chairs, and I walked out into the sunlight and drove back to the salon and finished my afternoon appointments. What he didn't know was that every single time he made a joke about my tips, I was calculating my next investment. What he didn't know was that every time he called my apartment a shoebox, I was choosing to live small so I could build big. What he didn't know was that the woman he dismissed as just a hairstylist had been sitting on a portfolio that dwarfed everything he and Danielle had combined. I used to check my investment app at night after Ava went to sleep. I'd sit on my couch with a cup of tea and watch the numbers update. And sometimes, when Craig would post another bragging photo or make another snide comment, I'd open the app just to remind myself that his opinion of me was the least accurate thing in the world. When the court date got closer, I knew I needed Elena. Not just her advice, but her presence. I called her on a Wednesday evening. She picked up on the second ring. "He filed what?" she said. I could hear the disbelief in her voice, sharp and immediate. "An emergency motion to freeze the trust. He's saying the money is illegal." She was quiet for about 3 seconds. Elena is never quiet, so I knew she was furious. "Tessa, I've been guiding your investments for a decade. Every transaction is documented. Every tax return is filed. Every single dollar is traceable." "I know," I said. "Then we're going to court," she said. "And I'm bringing everything." Elena isn't just a mentor. She's the kind of woman who walks into a room and the temperature changes. She's been featured in Forbes. She's spoken at conferences in Tokyo and London and New York. She sits on the boards of 3 major beauty companies and runs a venture fund that manages over $200 million in assets. And she was going to walk into a small-town family courtroom and tell a judge exactly where my money came from. Craig, meanwhile, was getting more arrogant by the day. He threw what he called a real celebration for Ava the weekend before the hearing. Another party at his house. Another chance to perform. He told everyone who would listen that the trust fund would be gone by next week and that his lawyers were going to expose the whole thing. He even told Ava, in front of Danielle and her kids, that she should prepare to give back the money because Mom is in serious trouble. Ava called me that night. She was trying not to cry, but I could hear it in her voice, that thin, tight sound like a string about to snap. "Mom, are you going to be okay?" "I'm going to be more than okay," I told her. "I promise." She exhaled. "Dad keeps saying you're going to jail." "Your dad," I said carefully, "has never once in his life understood what I'm capable of." I meant it. Every word. The hearing was on a Thursday. Courtroom B, 2nd floor of the county courthouse, a room that smelled like old wood polish and recycled air. The chairs were hard. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead with that faint electrical hum that gets under your skin if you sit there long enough. Craig showed up in a navy suit with his lawyer, a guy named Thornton who had a reputation in town for being aggressive and expensive. Danielle sat in the gallery behind them, legs crossed, sunglasses pushed up on her head like she was at a brunch she'd rather not be attending. I wore a simple black blouse and gray pants. I'd done my own hair that morning, a low bun, clean and neat. My lawyer, a woman named Sandra Cho whom Elena had recommended, sat beside me with a calm expression and a leather briefcase. Craig's lawyer went first. He stood up and laid it out like a case on a crime show. He said I was a hairstylist earning approximately $42,000 a year. He said there was no reasonable explanation for how someone in my position could have accumulated $1.2 million. He used words like suspicious and unexplained wealth and potential fraud. He asked the judge to freeze the trust immediately pending a full financial investigation. He spoke for about 15 minutes. He sounded confident. Craig sat behind him looking like a man who'd already won. Then it was our turn. Sandra stood up, straightened her jacket, and said 6 words that changed the entire energy of the room. "Your Honor, I'd like to call Dr. Elena Park as our witness." I heard Craig's chair creak. I didn't look at him. The courtroom doors opened and Elena walked in. She was wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than Craig's car payment. Her heels clicked on the tile floor with a rhythm that sounded almost deliberate, like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. She carried a leather folder that was at least an inch thick. She didn't look at Craig. She didn't look at Danielle. She walked straight to the front, took her seat, and stated her name, credentials, and professional history for the record. The judge leaned forward slightly, recognizing the name. Thornton shifted in his seat. Sandra began the questions, and Elena answered every single one with the precision of a surgeon. She explained how she had mentored me for over a decade. She presented documentation of every investment I had ever made, dated, notarized, and cross-referenced with tax filings. She showed receipts of initial capital, sourced from salon income and personal savings, amounts that were entirely consistent with someone who lived frugally and saved aggressively over 10 years. She showed the returns on each investment. She showed the trust fund paperwork, prepared by a licensed financial manager at a reputable firm, every signature witnessed, every dollar accounted for. And then she pulled out one more thing. Emails. Printed, highlighted, and date-stamped. Emails that Craig had sent me over the years, forwarded to my personal account, in which he mocked my income. One said, "Maybe if you spent less time with your stupid little side hustle and more time being a real parent, Ava wouldn't be so embarrassed by you." Another said, "I don't know why you bother saving when you'll never have anything worth saving for." A third said, "Ava's going to realize one day that her mom peaked at beauty school." Elena read each one aloud. Her voice was steady, clinical, completely devoid of emotion, which somehow made the words hit harder. The courtroom was silent. Craig's lawyer objected twice. The judge overruled him both times. When Elena finished, Sandra asked the judge to review the complete financial record, which showed a clear, legal, documented path from $40,000 in savings to $1.2 million in verified investments. There was nothing hidden, nothing stolen, nothing fraudulent. Just a woman who learned how to invest and had the discipline to do it quietly for a decade. The judge reviewed the documents. He took about 20 minutes, which felt like 20 hours. Then he spoke. "The court finds no evidence of fraud, theft, or illegal activity. The trust fund established for Ava Renner is a legitimate financial instrument funded entirely by Ms. Tessa Renner's personal savings and investment returns. The motion to freeze is denied." I exhaled. It was the first full breath I'd taken in 2 weeks. But the judge wasn't done. "Furthermore," he continued, looking directly at Craig, "this court is troubled by the nature of the petitioner's filing. The allegations appear to have been made not out of genuine concern for the minor's welfare, but out of personal animosity toward the respondent. Mr. Renner, you have wasted this court's time and resources. As a corrective measure, I am ordering you to personally fund Ava's first semester of college tuition out of your own pocket. This is separate from, and in addition to any existing support obligations." Craig's jaw dropped. Literally dropped. I heard Danielle make a small sound behind him, something between a gasp and a groan. Thornton leaned over and whispered something to Craig, probably the legal equivalent of "I told you this was a risk." The judge dismissed the case. Sandra shook my hand. Elena put her folder back together with the same calm precision she'd had walking in. I stood up, smoothed my blouse, and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. In the hallway, the sound of my shoes on the marble floor echoed in a way that felt different than usual. It felt like punctuation at the end of a very long sentence. After that day, things settled in a way I hadn't expected. Not with drama or fireworks, but with quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm when the air smells clean and everything looks a little sharper than it did before. Ava started college that fall. Full ride from the trust, plus her first semester covered by Craig as the judge ordered. She chose a university 3 hours away, close enough to visit, but far enough to build her own life. She's studying biomedical engineering. She told me once, sitting at my kitchen table over leftover pasta, that she chose it because she wanted to build things that help people. Like you build things, Mom, she said. Quietly. Without anyone knowing until it mattered. I had to put my fork down for a minute after that. Craig's world, meanwhile, shifted in ways he didn't broadcast on social media. Danielle made him sell the cherry red car he'd bought for Ava. The one with the big bow, the one that 60 people had filmed in the driveway. She said they needed the money to cover the legal fees from Thornton, who apparently doesn't offer refunds for losing cases. Craig stopped posting as much after that. The last thing I saw on his page was a photo of him at a barbecue, no caption, no bragging, no tags. Just a man standing next to a grill, looking a little smaller than he used to. I don't check his page anymore. As for me, I'm still at Goldie's. 3 days a week now instead of 5. Not because I have to work less, but because I choose to. I still love the feeling of a good cut, the satisfaction of seeing someone look in the mirror and sit up a little straighter. I love the smell of the salon in the morning, before the first client arrives, when it's just me and the clean towels and the sunlight coming through the front window and the faint hum of the radio playing something soft. I still invest. Elena and I talk every month. My portfolio has grown since the hearing, and I've started mentoring 2 other stylists who remind me of the person I was 15 years ago. Broke, tired, brilliant in ways nobody had told them yet. I take them to coffee and show them spreadsheets and watch their eyes change when they realize that the money passing through their hands every day doesn't have to just pass through. It can stay. It can grow. It can become something their children will benefit from long after the last blowout is done. People in town look at me differently now. Some of them are embarrassed about how they laughed at Craig's party. A few have apologized. Mrs. Patterson brought me flowers one Tuesday and said, "Tessa, I'm sorry I ever doubted you." I told her there was nothing to apologize for. She didn't know. Nobody did. That was the whole point. I think about that moment at graduation sometimes. Not the humiliation. Not Craig's voice or the sound of people laughing or the look on Ava's face when her smile disappeared. I think about the moment after. The moment she opened the envelope and saw what was inside and looked at me with those wide, wet eyes and whispered, "Mom, is this real?" That was the moment 10 years of silence paid off. 10 years of skipping vacations and driving a car that rattled over 40 miles an hour and eating rice and beans 3 nights a week and smiling politely when people felt sorry for me. 10 years of knowing something they didn't. Some people measure success by what they flash. The cars, the houses, the parties, the social media posts designed to make everyone else feel small. I understand that. I used to feel small watching Craig do it. But I don't anymore. I measured my success by what I could quietly give my daughter when she needed it most. A future. Security. Proof that her mother was never, not for one single day, the person they thought I was. And if you're out there right now reading this, living in your own version of that shoebox apartment, saving your own version of those salon tips, building something that nobody around you can see yet, I want you to hear me. Keep going. Don't explain yourself. Don't justify your pace. Don't let anyone's loud opinion drown out your quiet plan. One day, you'll hand someone you love an envelope, and everything you sacrificed will make sense in a single heartbeat. If your ex or anyone ever mocked how little they thought you had while you were secretly building your child's future, this one's for you. Subscribe and tell me in the comments what tiny thing you did that turned into something huge for your kid. Your quiet grind matters. Click share to help this story reach others who need it. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and click share to help it reach more people who need to hear it. Your voice matters in our community. Share your own experience in the comments below. I'm reading every single one.